Okay, we'll try that again. Again. Okay. There we go. Now we're for reals live.
I see it.
We're good?
Good.
Okay, Bruce, you were saying pictures.
Yeah, so we'll just run through these and I'll tell you what the highlight is or what this picture is. And then if you have any questions, we'll answer them. So.
We're having technical difficulties. Sorry, guys.
Leah is so nice to help me because I have no idea how to have you view my screen or how to see so I put them on a jump drive for her to do it.
Okay, let's try that again. There you go. You see that?
Yes.
Okay, that's the new volleyball court surround. That'll be a sand volleyball court. That's the concrete border. And
oh no, it won't let me scroll through them.
Oh no. Well, I'll just describe to you the beauties of the I Love You Park project.
I think for the next one, Bruce, you should have them as your virtual background so you can point to them.
Yeah. I thought about having a selfie of me walking around and doing a video.
Hold on, Bruce. I'll get them for you.
Do you want me to go outside and film it?
Yeah.
I can turn my camera around.
Okay, let's try this one more time. Nope.
Hey, Bruce, while we're waiting, could I ask one question?
Sure.
The elevation of the backyard for my neighbor compared to what the new elevation is of the ground at the park is pretty substantially different. Is there going to be some sort of a retaining wall so her yard doesn't slough off into the park?
So it's the neighbor to the east?
The neighbor to the east. Uh-huh.
I know they still have some finished grading to do there. They're just putting in they dug the trenches to do the irrigation.
Okay.
I think it will go from the bottom of the fence line will stay the same. And then I think it does slope towards the park. So no water or anything will run off into her yard, but from her yard, it may run off into the park.
She was worried about the actual dirt running off into the park.
Oh.
So I wasn't sure what to tell her.
Let's get a little farther after they get the irrigation in, and then before they do the planting, they'll have to do a finished grade, and then we can know for sure what we're looking at.
Okay.
I know that one tree that's they left the stump that right across from your yard.
It's regrowing.
Well, he said I just can't take that stump out without pulling the fence out, and so I think that's what we'll do is I'll contact you and take just that section of mesh out, pull the stump out, and then we'll put that section of mesh back. I mean, that's
okay.
either that or we carve the stump into something nice and leave it.
The decorative. Just let me know in advance.
Okay, yeah, it looks like that's keeping in. So I'll have to talk to you and make sure it's okay to open that up for a little bit.
Yep, I'll run my chickens somewhere else for the time being when you do it. Okay.
Do you put them on leashes?
No, I just open the gate the other direction and they come out and eat the grass, and then I close off their run so they can't get into the park.
My neighbor, they got some new kittens and they were walking down the street with their kittens on leashes, and I hadn't seen that before.
Wow.
Sorry, Bruce, I can't get this to come up and work.
Maybe you could just email it to us and we can look individually and after the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can maybe just describe to you some of the things. Some of the pictures are of the rock work. They've been completing more of the rock work on all the levels. They've poured the bases to the light posts on the phase 2 up on the top level and run the power and fiber is into the new restroom building. And they're preparing to do the concrete surround around the new restroom building. They did the concrete sidewalk around the old existing restroom down on the first level. A lot of the plantings getting done, the putting in planting material, because of the landscape of the park and the levels and different things. There's a lot of things they can't quite finish up because they have to leave access. So there's some of the plantings that are going to happen, and some of the irrigation, and some of the concrete, and some of everything will all happen and finish up all at the same time, because they have to leave some areas in order for them to get in. The general contractor was telling me about another project they're working on right now that is about the same size park, but it's all undeveloped level piece of land with no terracing, and there's no existing trees or anything they're trying to work around or connect to. And he was saying how much faster things go when it's just a piece of bare land versus what our project. He says your park is going to be a lot cooler when it's all done, but it is a technical job to coordinate all the different things and give access into different parts of it.
So when do you feel like we will be?
There's still the substantial completion date is still set for the end of May, and then final punch lists and things will go through, I'm sure, the next 2 weeks, and we're looking like we should still be on our regular target date of first part of June or middle of June.
How are we looking on final costs?
We're on track. We still have contingency that hasn't been used, and there's some things that they've had to credit us back for that we've been able to enhance or add to some things. We probably will have one more change order that will come through that right now they're supposed to get back to me with the numbers of how much credit they owe us and how much extra we need for the change order and how those balance out. But it looks like right now our contingency is sufficient, and we're staying on budget.
So as of this report, Bruce, as of March 31st, we had 43,000 in grant funds left and 137,000 in Zion's lease. Was most of that used up in April? It's been a month since then. Do we have much left for May?
No, none of that has been used yet, Mayor.
Okay. So that's nothing was used done in April.
I just put through a couple of draws for
Okay.
purchase orders today that I think one was 53,000 and one was 39,000. But they were just regular within what we had budgeted. They're regular draws.
Yeah, what I'm showing as of the invoice he's talking about today, it looks like between our Zion's real property lease and the grant itself, we're going to need about $70,000. If we go all the way, if we use all that contingency, we'll need to use about $70,000 wrap to cover the contract. And we have that. I mean, we had a $78,000 fund balance last year in the parks capital improvement. So we should be all right.
Do you have any questions about the park or the construction process?
Is it sufficiently done that if we wanted to go over and walk through, we can?
It's still a construction site, so you need a hard hat and an orange vest, but we could arrange for that. They're very much, there's different crews. There's planting crews, there's concrete crews, there's excavation crews all working. So it's an active construction site. So we just need to coordinate it where it could be safe for you to walk through.
Are they working in the evening?
They probably are working a little later now. We've got daylight and good weather. Like I said, I just have to coordinate and find out what exactly projects are going on each day and when would be a good time. If you'd like to just individually call me and go for a walk in the middle of the day, we could probably do that. If you want to go as a group, we need to probably coordinate a little more.
I could comment, but I won't do it on live stream. You won't be the first one to walk through, even if you go tonight. They're not there right now, but they'll be there at 7 in the morning. They're usually starting just before 7.
Are you saying we have a problem with trespass at an active construction site?
There are citizens there every day.
I would be interested in walking through. I don't want to set a bad example. Is anyone else?
I'd be interested.
Yeah, like I say, things are happening so quickly that there's new things every day that are completed or done. So we could sure set something up, and like I say, if you just like to meet sometime during any day, I could probably pull away and just walk through with you.
Does anybody else have a strong feeling, or anybody else feel that way? When would be the best for you in the next 2 days?
If you want to give me a call morning or afternoon, I could make it work either way.
I'd like to go through too. I didn't know why you were ignoring me, but I was on mute. So I've just been talking away, and maybe this is to everybody's benefit.
Okay, so we'll just
No,
need to
we love
post
you.
that. If we do it all at once, just post it as a meeting. So we need just 24 hours notice for Leah to post. Because if we have a
I
quorum
was
there.
going to suggest that we don't do it in large enough groups to require us to post.
Well, except for it would be nice to have Bruce there, and it's not fair to ask him to go multiple times. I'd be interested in going, and I think Thursday evening, kind of maybe at the end of the workday, 5:30 or 6, and that works for me. So I'd suggest that might be a possibility.
What one idea Brant had was that we could fly over with a drone and film some video, and we have access to a drone pilot. It's now a city employee that we if we can figure out a way to get a drone, that we might be able to just do a virtual tour for you.
I personally would prefer to walk over, but
I personally would prefer to walk over also.
Okay.
If you do that, just follow the guidelines, set an example.
well, Tammy threw out Thursday at 6. Does that work, Bruce?
No.
Okay.
Anytime before 3 o'clock would work.
Let me check my calendar, but I could do Thursday, but then that makes it harder for people working. Oh, everyone's working from home, right? Are we still working from home, everyone? So Thursday at 1?
Yeah, I could do that.
Does that work for others?
I can do that.
Okay.
Okay, I'm putting that in my calendar. Is that official?
Just a half second. I'm still trying to get to mine. I could do Thursday at 1.
It's sure been easier to schedule things lately.
Well, somebody take some video. I can't make it 1 o'clock on Thursday.
Are you okay with video, George, or do you want us to try to find another time?
We live in a world of video right now. I'm totally fine with it.
All right.
As long as it's not vertical, we'll be fine.
I'm not sure what that means, but okay.
It's an internet joke. Brant is laughing. He knows where I'm at on that.
So, we at one time had the Parks and Rec Committee chair in. Are we doing a virtual ribbon cutting ceremony? Is that what we're down to now?
Probably, even at a level yellow, you can't have more than 50 people, and
Okay.
we all have to social distance, and yeah, and the playground's still closed off, so it doesn't make sense to.
Well, maybe we'll do a delayed one, huh? Hopefully in the fall or something.
Right. Yeah. I would for sure wait until your playground can be played on before you do an opening.
Are you saying that even at a yellow, the playground will still be shut off?
I'm not sure on that, but I know they're shut now through the end of May.
That's kind of dependent, Councilwoman Fillmore, on the county health order. The county health order has playgrounds closed.
Until the middle of May or the end right now? Do you know?
What, my
I thought it was,
understanding,
I thought it was to the middle, but no promise that it would open at the middle.
that's correct. It's the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll just expect to get word updated before then.
When I don't have an opening, even a virtual ribbon cutting, if the playground isn't open, we're encouraging people to go see it, and then we're going to get mad at them for being there. So I don't think we announce it's done until people can go on the playground.
Yeah, delaying it till later in the summer, fall is probably the way.
And it's open, so if you know about it, you can go play volleyball or whatever. But I think to encourage a lot of people to go there, we're just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yep. I agree.
Where are we meeting
though.
Thursday?
Let's meet on the east road of the cemetery. I think we could all just park along that east road in the cemetery and walk across the street, and that'll be a shady spot.
Great.
Anything else, Bruce?
No, just happy Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much. And we'll look forward to doing that on Thursday. So
okay, Thursday, 1 o'clock.
All right. Second item of business on the work session is the component unit discussion. This is the discussion on a couple of our component units that we're trying to make comply with GASB 84. So I'm not sure who's leading that. Brent, you, Jake, who's leading that?
Jacob and Marcus.
Okay.
Yeah. So with the component units, Jake and I have been looking at the Centerville Foundation, and we've been going through the standards, and it appears that how the foundation is set up, that it should be a component unit of the city, which would mean that the financials of the Centerville Foundation should be included with the city's foundation or the city's financial statements.
I don't mean to be argumentative, Marcus, but I disagree.
Well, there's just small changes that would need to be made.
I agree with that.
Yeah, small changes that can be made, and then it wouldn't be considered a component unit of the city, and we'd be okay. So, but how it currently is, we feel that it would be a component unit, but if we make some small changes, then it wouldn't be. Where we kind of get hung up is it seems like the government, the city, can appoint the voting majority of the Centerville Foundation board, and the city has the ability to remove board members at will. And so if the city didn't appoint the voting majority of the Centerville Foundation Board, and they couldn't remove board members, they don't have the ability to appoint, hire, reassign, or dismiss people that work on the day-to-day of the Centerville Foundation, then we feel that it wouldn't be a component unit of the city, and we'd be okay. Does that make sense?
Well, I think there's two different, I have two different levels of disagreement.
Okay.
And I am not practicing and recognize that I'm not practicing, but as I go back and I look through things, the examples in GASB 14 clearly state a materiality standard. So first, I disagree on a materiality basis. Secondly, you're right. The other alternative is to fix that from an appointment standpoint, and materiality is
Right,
debatable,
right.
and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But I would propose that we revise the appointments and make the appointments the purview of a committee of the mayor, the chairman, and the senior member of the board at any point in time.
Right.
That's essentially what is happening, because the mayor has the power to dictate, but he really doesn't dictate. The chairman is very much involved, and that would resolve the issue. So I think it can be argued on both, but I think the easier fix is to change the appointments. I haven't had a chance to talk to the mayor about it, and I apologize, Mayor. I didn't get to really look at that until today.
Right. And I also agree that, yeah, this foundation, it's not significant to the city. The dollar amount that goes in and out of the foundation, it's not significant. So that's, that is true. It just, and yeah, as long as the mayor doesn't have the authority to appoint the majority of the board, then I agree that we're okay.
One of the reasons that I feel as strongly as I do is that city financial statements are already complex and difficult for people to read and understand. And if you get to the additional disclosures that are prompted, having the columns with included and excluded, or included, complete and included, and pro forma, it just magnifies the difficulty of going through the financial statement. And that's part of the reason that I feel that it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
So I have a question, and I know nothing about the accounting end of it, and I admit to that. But I am concerned with putting it out there as Centerville City Foundation. I feel like the council needs to be involved and have an oversight, because if somebody donates a lot, they trust one city council member or all city council members, and they think, hey, I'm donating to the Centerville City Foundation. And then all of a sudden the foundation does something that the council wouldn't maybe not be in line with, then the council has no say. I'm really concerned about promoting this as the Centerville Foundation and then taking away so that the council has no say over it. Because I think people donate thinking that the city is the one that has the say over it. Almost think it needs a different name if you're using the city to get people to donate, but yet the city really doesn't have control over where the money's going.
The thing, Robin, is that most community foundations are not controlled by the community that they serve. Now, we've already got a provision that sets the mayor, the city manager, and one member of the council, one additional member of the council, as members of the foundation board. And the board is, I mean, it is a board, and what we're talking about doing makes it maybe a little bit more independent. But you've essentially got the same thing you've got right now, and the purpose of the foundation is to support activities that benefit the city of Centerville. Many instances, especially if people are putting in significant amount of money, they are putting some strings on it that says, I'd like to have my money used for the police department, or I'd like to have my money used for parks. So there's already a structure in place that allows them to make sure that their money goes where they want it to go. So I hear what you're saying, but I think that the structure's already in place to control that.
And maybe I should mention, Robin, for you as well, the regulating body for these foundations is actually the Division of Consumer Protection within the state of Utah, as well as the IRS. So there is an
Well, I'm
oversight.
not worried about them doing something per se illegal, but some people have a pet project here where some other people have a pet project there. If I'm on the board, you know, I'm all pro this, so the money's going there, but I get on the board because I want to see this happen. I just worry that we get, you know, we get it going in a direction that isn't the direction the council would want it to go, and people don't realize that the council has no say about it. I mean, they have one council member and the mayor, which right now is great, but we don't know who our council members or our mayors are going to be down the line. I just am concerned. I just don't want people to think that the council is their safety net and say to them, like we have to on so many other things, well, the council doesn't have any say in it. We can't do anything about it. But like I said, I admit I don't know anything on the financial end of it. So maybe that's not logical. That's my only concern is I kind of like having the council have a little bit more say.
So if I can step in, I have met with John Hollingshead to discuss this. He expressed concern that if he loses some connection to the city, that it will, the foundation will lose its credibility. That was his number one concern. And what I shared with him
with that. And so I guess that's my concern. That's where he's getting his credibility, but yet it's almost a fake security blanket.
So what he was worried about is more so losing potentially the mayor and council member off the board, off the foundation, and having input, because he finds that that input valuable. So what I told him is essentially nothing's changing. The difference is no longer is the mayor going to bring names to the council to confirm or ratify who John has already has in mind to be a member. Right now, the bylaws are 11 members, and 3 of them are city connected to the city. As Councilmember Ince said, the mayor, council member, and city manager. What I shared with him is we can add maybe a 4th member if he is concerned, if he wants to have another connection with the city. Maybe have 4 members connected to the city to kind of firm up that city influence. I do have some concerns about having a majority of city connected members on the board, but that's not a huge one. I discussed, the one of the item, and Councilmember Ince and the mayor can confirm, we've discussed priorities a lot over our last few meetings. It almost feels like we haven't really selected a project. So we discussed the needs, and this goes to you, Councilmember Mecham, where we discussed the possibility of John coming to the council and the council saying, here are our priorities. We would like to see more playgrounds or pickleball courts or some sort of water feature. And then John would take that back to the foundation and say, here's a priority from the council, and ask the foundation, what do you want to go raise funds for? So we're looking at different ways on how to raise funds. There's going to be that connection. And as Councilmember Ince, I love the idea of Councilmember Ince taking it one step further. My thought was having the mayor and John as the president would be the ones who essentially nominate the board members, but having one other person, maybe a senior member, being involved in that decision making. You have a connectivity to the city who are selecting those board members. John is actually really excited about the opportunity. He gets it now, and he supports the idea because it doesn't change anything that we're currently doing other than changing the appointment. So I think there's some opportunity there, and I think it's good. And I shared with him there is a need for us. As of right now, Jake and myself are on the checking account at Wells Fargo. I said we need to remove that from the city, being on that checking account. It should be strictly foundation folks on that checking account. Because really, Jacob is overseeing the financial side, but he's the city controlling a separate entity's financials or has control over it. So I just recommended that we possibly find a CPA that's willing to do some work. The financials, Jacob says you spend, what, 10 minutes a year? I'm just kidding, more than that. But, but the financials are not difficult to manage. And I think we can easily find someone in the community that could assist the foundation with helping with those financials. Therefore, it's no longer under the city. It's not commingling with our funds in any way or our financials in any way. Just creating that separation. And John fully supports that idea as well.
You've been silent, Mayor.
I think the point you pointed out, Councilman Ince, is good. A few number of weeks back when we had this, what materiality was one thing I talked about. Obviously, we'd like it to be more material, but it's not. I like the idea. It sounds like Marcus agrees with what you suggested, Councilman Ince, that you know, as long as we change how things are appointed, that it sounds like we'd be in compliance. And it sounds like Marcus and Jake are agreeing. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would work.
Yeah, just the idea is so the city can't impose its will on the, I mean, you can have members on the board and help make decisions in that. It just can't fully influence the whole foundation. And then like Brant said about keeping the finances separate, that would also help too. But yeah, I think that would be fine.
I do understand John Hollingshead's concern that you know, it's obviously, it makes fundraising easier if it's going towards a city project and it's connected to the city somehow. So if we do that, what you've just said, Marcus, and what Brant has talked to John about, it sounds like it keeps it where there's some connection to the city. Is that correct?
Yeah,
I believe it does.
So,
Robin?
Like I said, I don't know the other part of it, so I can't push really hard because the financial part, I don't know. Like I said, I have a concern that, you know, and not right now, but down the line, that we get a group that are all there for a reason or have a certain agenda or are pro something, and there's no council that can kind of step in and say, whoa, you know, we need to. So I have a concern where we're saying it's the Centerville City, and then we're saying the Centerville City doesn't have any say over it. I mean, they have some say, but not really. If we have 2 members out of 11 on a board, we're not having a lot of say. I'd rather see it come to the council for that reason. Like I said, I'm just concerned, not for us now, but for us 10 years down the line, that we've set precedents to where we can, I mean, we've seen groups that get all like-minded on the group, and, you know, then they take off on something that is maybe not what people, but that's just, you know, that's not the financial thing at all. So whatever you financial guys think is best, I'll go along with it.
well, Marcus, this,
I guess, Robin, to that, the thing that I would say is what the council has responsibility over is taxpayer funds, right? And so I do think this is a separate situation where people donating, I mean, it would just need to be explained to them what this foundation is and what its mission is.
But that is, President Hollingshead's concern is they're going out and saying, this is the Centerville City Foundation. So they're using Centerville City to get the funds. And he feels like if they can't say that, they're not going to get the funds. So people are donating because they feel like it is going to the city for city things, but yet really the city has no say over it. That's my concern with the people that are, you know, putting it out there. And we can say now, well, we'll be really careful and tell them, but down the line, is that going to fall through to where they come and say, Tammy, we'd like you to donate. And you think, oh, well, I want to help the city, I'll donate. And then all of a sudden you find out it was something that you weren't in favor of. And there's not a city council or anything you can go to and say, hey, you know, they've already received, I don't know. That's just my concern.
Robin, I
George,
think, I'm sorry for interrupting, Robin. I think part of your concern is in not being familiar with the bylaws and the restrictions on the organization and the facts that they have to maintain their tax qualification and report where the money is spent. And all of those are tied in the basic organization. There certainly is the potential that someone could contribute, and I'm just going to use $100, and not be thrilled with where it was spent. But if someone is going to contribute a larger amount of money, and we're really trying to upgrade this to where instead of fighting for $100, we're fighting for $1,000. If somebody's going to put in $1,000, they're going to have a conversation ahead of time and be targeting it towards particular activities. So I hear what you're saying, but I think that the mechanism of having a community foundation spells out the restrictions so that you don't end up with the problem you're worrying about.
Okay.
And it's
Just
also,
to clarify, John is okay with what we discussed, and that is you continues to have the mayor, a council member, and the city manager on the board. He thought he was potentially losing that influence or that connection to the city. That's not going anywhere. John is completely happy with the direction we're going.
If we wanted to have a second council person on the board, I would totally support that. I don't know that I think it's necessary, but I would totally support that. And I can, and obviously with this conversation, John would welcome that.
Yeah, and what I originally discussed was potentially having, again, Jacob shifting out of that treasury role and maybe making the finance director one of the board members. So there is that finance connection who will oversee the money when it is accepted by the city. That's not a must. A second council member is another option, but just some connection to the city. But adding a fourth member, I think, could be beneficial, but still in the minority. So you're not controlling it.
Right. The other, well, I don't know that, but never mind. I won't bring that up. So so if we are in agreement with this is a work meeting. We don't usually make decisions. Do we bring this up in council meeting?
Wouldn't it be put on the agenda next time?
We do have, it's kind of strange. We do have it, the articles of incorporation that was done by the foundation and their bylaws. So the foundation would need to amend those.
Okay.
But we also have an ordinance that recognizes the foundation within the city. So we would need to amend that as a city.
So is the intent here just to say we recognize how Bill is suggesting we create the separation and then make that as a recommendation back to the board so that they can go ahead and do their amendments in their bylaws? Because was it 2/3 they need to make those changes?
I believe so, yes. So that's what we'll do is we'll bring an ordinance back to you for a vote. This is one of those things that we need to get done complete before the end of this fiscal year, so we avoid an audit finding. We didn't necessarily receive a recommendation regarding community foundation, but we did receive a recommendation from the auditors regarding our Whitaker Museum, and we'll need to address that as well. So those two we need to change prior to the end of this fiscal year, so you'll see it in an upcoming meeting, whether it's it'll be the next one.
Mm-hmm.
so anything further on Whitaker from Marcus or Jake?
Foundation.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Jake.
Yeah, now we can talk about Whitaker. Go ahead, Marcus.
Okay, so Whitaker Fund, it's currently reported as a fiduciary fund. I mean, there's three main types of funds in governmental accounting. There's governmental funds and proprietary funds, and then fiduciary funds. GASB 84 is new. It's effective just in 2020. And it goes through and identifies certain types of funds that can be, certain types of activities that can be considered a fiduciary fund. And in going through GASB 84, the Whitaker Fund doesn't seem to fit as a fiduciary fund anymore. I mean, I emailed out there, Jake's emailed out the requirements. I don't know if you want me to go through that.
Well, I think for the sake of time, I mean, if we have any question about that, we could talk about that in a little bit, but let me just give staff's recommendation, what we plan to do with the Whitaker. You've seen several times how we've handled it in the budget. We've moved the Whitaker, the programs and the building itself into the general fund at this point. And what we propose to do with the funds that the Whitaker will have left over at the end of this year, and those funds like RAP tax or whatever that's dedicated to the Whitaker, is just keep those in a general fund, a restricted account. You see that report every single month in our financials already for like the DUI and there's a few other restricted funds. That would be another one. So you'd be able to see that balance from year to year within the general fund itself. So that's the proposal. That's what we want to do this year. Next year, we can handle which direction we actually want to go with the Whitaker, whether it goes independent, 501c3, or if we continue it as it is, what we do with the board, committee, bylaws, all that sort of thing. But for now, just compliant with the audit and not to get a finding. This is the proposal that we do for now.
So I would defer to the board on the direction they want to go. I don't think for us as a city, this solves the issue with GASB 84 by bringing the funds within the general fund and creating this restricted fund to help them save up for future capital improvement projects. But if the board so chooses to separate themselves from the city to avoid the bureaucracy and open public meetings and some of the issues we have to deal with, then the board can so choose to do that. In no way are we encouraging the board, Whitaker to break off. We're addressing, at a minimum, but I think there are some opportunities that the Whitaker could consider to be far more effective than they are right now. I'm not saying they're not being effective, but I think there's other opportunities we just need to explore. It could be fine as it is.
I think Jake's proposal fixes the situation in the short term. I would encourage the same kind of a separation for Whitaker that we just talked through for the foundation. To me, what drives and makes the Whitaker successful is not the $10,000 a year that we put in. What drives it and makes it successful is the hundreds of hours that people are putting in. And so by peeling it off and making it independent, we can still make the same kind of a contribution, but now they're their own entity, and and they should definitely go 501. That helps them raise money and get other outside money in, and strengthens the position. And I would say that you can do the same type of thing on the board there that we've talked about for the foundation, and I feel that makes more sense.
I agree with Councilmember Rentz. That's a future conversation though, but yeah.
Sure, that's
I
fine.
agree.
Yeah, we can make that work. I mean, we have to do a transfer to move everything out and clear out that current Whitaker fund and move it into the general fund. But then we would, through restricted fund balance, we would keep track of any money funds that they did have that are earmarked for the Whitaker Museum. So we would still be able to track that.
Yeah, and that's with the pandemic we're currently dealing with. Lisa and I had a conversation, Summer and I had a conversation about the projects, and whatever they can't get done through the end of the year, we'll continue just to move that, make them whole. They won't lose any funding if they don't spend it. We'll transfer everything over that was in their fund to begin with and reserve it.
Sounds good.
So it sounds like both these issues, there's going to be some paperwork that comes before us at a future council meeting, right?
There will be. And if I can just briefly go over, Mayor, the two other items. The other item is the Citizen Corps. Councilmember Rents, I know we've discussed this. Honestly, I think it's as easy enough as making Citizen Corps a committee and having the mayor ratify those board members. And that could easily become a citizen committee. A city committee. I don't foresee any huge issues with that one. I mean, the board gets together and gives chief guidance or advice. And then the chief comes to this council and asks for permission and budgets those requests. So I don't know if it's really a city committee, but I mean, we could solidify it and give it some more credibility by making it creating it by ordinance and having the mayor ratify those members. But that's where I'll kind of defer to you and the chief.
I think that makes sense. I hadn't thought about that in terms of this conversation today. You're right, but I think that makes sense.
As far as creating a committee?
Yeah. Yes.
And I think we could avoid a potential issue. I don't know if GASB 84 really impacts that. We didn't go through a checklist on that. But I think that's an easy solution and gives it some credibility and as it goes forward. So.
Okay.
And then the last one, Centerville Cares, as we've discussed, and Mayor and I have had multiple conversations about Centerville Cares. I don't know, Mayor, if you want to just give an update on where you are with Centerville Cares and setting up the website and all that.
Yeah, I set up a nonprofit corporation for Centerville Cares. Was gonna go down the road and still am, but I don't have the approval yet of the 501c3 for it as well too. And then we had been in contact in setting up its own website as well too. And we're in the process of doing that. Anything else you're thinking of, Brent?
Merchant services was a big one.
Yes. Yeah. And with that, with the website, we'd have our own merchant services as well too. We'd make sure that we'd contacted somebody that could set us up where they, they'd could accept payments right through that own website.
Great. Yeah, I think it's great. Separating that a little bit more, but I think as a city, again, we can continue to support Centerville Cares as a separate entity. And I think there's valuable services there. But we just need to clean that up a little bit as well.
So now that could be a long conversation. I'm going to withdraw the question.
We can have an offline conversation, Councilmember Brents, if you'd.
Okay, great.
Okay, anything further on those? If not, I don't see reason for a closed session unless I hear otherwise. So I'll look for a motion to adjourn and we'll come back in about 5 minutes. Aaliyah, does that sound good for council meeting?
Do we have to sign off or can we stay on?
Same link. So just stay on.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We'll gather together in just under 5 minutes.
All right.
We back?
I'm here.
I'm here.
I am as well.
I'm here.
Leo, are you on YouTube?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, it's live on YouTube.
Right. All right. Welcome to the Centerville City Council meeting of May 5th, 2020. We are not doing it at City Hall. We're doing it because of the pandemic. We're doing it virtual. Welcome to any visitors that may be joining us on YouTube. Let's make sure that we can conduct business by doing a roll call. Councilwoman Meekum.
Present.
Councilwoman Ivy.
Present.
Councilwoman Fillmore.
Here.
Councilman McEwen.
Here.
Councilman Ince.
Present.
That'll be noted for the minutes. All 5 council members are present. Let's begin with a prayer thought by Councilwoman Ivy.
All right. Our Father in heaven, we are so grateful to gather together virtually tonight as a city council and as citizens here in Centerville. We're grateful for the opportunity for our self-government, grateful for the health that we enjoy at this time and for the decrease in numbers of infections that we're seeing from the virus in the area surrounding us. We're grateful for those who are our first responders and our front line to respond to this pandemic. We pray for thy blessing upon them, and we ask for thy protection and care for them and their families as they continue to bear the brunt of the stress and the active work of this pandemic. We also pray for thy blessing upon our citizens, upon our business owners, upon all those who are impacted. They'll help us that we'll be able to make wise choices and to improve our economy and continue to band together to conquer this and to come out stronger on the other side. We love thee. We thank thee for thy blessings and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thank you, Councilwoman. Leah, you got the flag ready to go? If you'd all rise and repeat Pledge of Allegiance. On 3, 1, 2, 3, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hopefully you're all able to do that. Thank you. We have an open session listed here, so that's open for all comments from the public. So we will take any calls or that come in. I guess Leah, you'll monitor those. So the open session is now open. We'll give it a few seconds.
Just for purposes of review, while we're waiting for the public who may or not be able to connect, what is the procedure there to use? As far as
Leah?
calling in, can we just put that out here for the next one in case we do have somebody who's trying?
We have removed the open session. It's not on this agenda.
Okay, the agenda I printed out was here, so I apologize. Because you and I did talk about that, Brant, but I probably printed out the agenda she sent out earlier Friday.
Okay.
So, okay. Let's move to the business of the meeting then. Okay.
Mayor, I'll just caution you, I think we have rearranged a few items, have we not, Leah, with the one that
I have it pulled up.
Okay.
Yeah, I have the new one pulled up. Okay.
So dealing with George's question, is the open session going to be permanently suspended until we are back meeting in person? Is that the intent?
It's the short-term solution right now, but I think that's a fair conversation if we'd like to introduce it back. I mean, we can make a number available, things like that, but we've just removed it from the agenda for now. But if there is a desire to have it returned, we can do that.
I think there should be some mechanism to get public comment in, and whether that is to have, designate and advertise a phone number that they can call and utilize that can be connected, whether it's an invitation to send an email that would be read for the record, something.
Okay, we'll work on that for the next agenda for sure, next council.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, the first item of business is summary calendar. This is, there's one item on the summary calendar. This is legacy crossing storage end of warranty. Any questions on that? If not, then I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the legacy crossing storage end of warranty.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the legacy crossing storage end of warranty. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you.
That was an aye. Sorry, I was still muted.
So it sounds like it's unanimous. Second item on the calendar is the fiscal year 21 proposed budget. Jake's going to present that. And so Jake, are you doing that? Are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Okay. I want to remind you and the public that this is a tentative budget. This is not the final budget. Some people call it the working budget. We've been working for the past, 4 or 5 months putting this together. What you have in front of you is a balanced budget. It changed quite a bit in March. We had a pretty normal budget with the conservative increases factored in, and we had these recent events happen. And so the budget that you see in front of you actually has quite a few cuts in revenue, reductions in revenue, I should say, primarily. As a result, you'll see that there is not a whole lot of funding for capital equipment. There's no increases except for one increase in personnel, and that is to fund the Tier 2 retirement benefit and requirement. And but we are, the good thing about this budget is we are still going to have quite a few projects. Those are not going on hold. Some examples would be transportation. We're still looking at a little over $1 million for road projects for this next year. And the water and the culinary water, we're looking at a little over $1 million as well there, between the water and the drainage. So those are still in there. All services are still going to be provided at the levels that they're at. There's a few that are cut back, mainly events. Most of the events and any of the extra things for employees, such as a recognition dinner, the Christmas dinner, those sorts of things have been cut out. There's some minor benefits in there that are not going to be funded, or some of them funded less. An example is tuition reimbursement. The wellness program is not funded for this next year for the employees. Overall, we had to find a little over $1 million worth of cuts in the general fund itself. Now the enterprise funds, they take a little bit of a hit, but just learned today, consumption of water and some of those other things while they're at home has actually increased, and we're actually receiving more revenue than we expect. So I might have to change that a little bit here in the budget for the final budget. Now we do have a list. If you look in the summary document of proposed equipment, most of those are deferred except for one. There is a bobtail, and that's because the council committed to purchase that one last month. So that's still included. There's a few other ones that are necessary, such as computers. They do go out. We are going to have to replace them. That's inevitable. But other than that, there isn't anything else there. But this list is a list of capital equipment that we think is essential to the city. And the idea is, as we go through the year, when revenues start to come in better than projected, and right now they're saying that the first half of the year is going to be low revenue. Hoping the second half there's going to be a recovery and we'll see more revenue than expected. Then we will go through the practice of funding some of that equipment or any of the other things that we proposed that had to be cut because of the revenue. So what you have tonight in front of you is a working budget, a balanced budget, and this opens up the time period as well for the public to comment on this budget document. And that's what I have in front of you today.
You cut out a little bit. Maybe did it cut out for everybody else, or did you get
Yes.
it?
It did, yeah.
Do you need some better recap on that? Where'd you get it?
I heard words like tentative, working, and budget, so I'm
Just
probably
the
good.
last few sentences.
We are,
Maybe
this is
just-
opening this is the introduction of the presentation of the budget to you, and we need to select the date for the public hearing. And this is where we'll also present it to the public for their input. And I think that's about it, Jacob, right?
So what happens if we're still at meetings of groups of 20 people on June 2?
What happens as far as a public hearing process?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we've been, as staff, we've been discussing public hearing options related to the Hive development with the manufactured home park. And we're looking at different options of how to include public comment. A lot of that, what we're looking at is, it's been standard practice for this council in the past to open the public hearing and have a second public hearing in the second meeting in June. What we would propose in this case is opening the public hearing, and similar to what we did with DeVore, leaving that public hearing open for a duration of a week and a half until Friday the packet needs to go out, and accept any comment and include that in the packet. And then we adopt the budget on the second meeting in June. But what we'll do is also include a phone number that residents can call into if they so choose in both meetings.
Okay.
So that's our thought of keeping everybody accessible to participating in the public comment.
When you
Right.
say a phone number, are you talking about for the public comment period during this meeting, or somewhere that they can call and leave a message during the public comment time that we leave it open?
We can do that as well. Leave a voicemail. I mean, that's also been discussed with the Hive development. So yes, that can also be an option. But particularly during this meeting, there is a phone number associated with each Zoom meeting that we would advertise.
The tough problem we're going to run into with anything that we do that's open like this is, you've all seen at least one Zoom bomb. If you haven't had enough calls yet. The problem with the anonymity of a phone number or something like that is we're going to have to be pretty strict on how we control what's said or how it's said, because we don't have the same public decorum enforcement rules as we would in a physical meeting. So it's going to be tough, Bill, no matter how we do it.
Yeah, that's absolutely a good comment. One of the concerns we have is when somebody starts going on a 10-minute, thought, and how do we cut them off and kick them off the Zoom call? That's a challenge. And do we really want to do that. But there tends to be less decorum, as you stated, that I've seen in some of these meetings, the examples I've seen and on.
What are you saying? Somebody always cuts you off in mid-sentence? Sorry, just had to do that.
Oh, so funny. All
George
right.
is still with us.
So anyway, yes, that's a concern. But we'll, honestly, we're at the point where we'll make it available and accessible until it happens, and then we have to adjust. I will share, if you haven't heard, the Utah League of Cities and Towns had their Zoom meeting, and we were introduced to pretty graphic images very early on, and unfortunately, those hosting it didn't know when to cut it off, and so we were exposed to that for longer than we needed to. And that's kind of what Lee and I have gone through some potential training, and that is, if we are exposed to it here, is the instructions is just to cut the meeting off right away. Don't try to fix it. I'm sure, Councilmember McEwen, you can agree that if hackers are in, you can try and mute them or stop sharing their screen, but they'll just share it again.
Yep, you've lost control by the time they got in, so that's the right approach.
So we just end the meeting, and then we will reach out to each of you and give you a new link to the new meeting. And then we'll reconvene once we, anyway, I guess that's good training while we're talking about this and what our contingency is. So
Well,
anyway.
I'm the innocent person George described. I haven't experienced a bomb yet.
I
So would
haven't
that
personally been
be-
on one, but I've been on a number of calls where it's been discussed or the aftermath has been there. I missed the one that Brant was on. I was going to be on that call, but I had another commitment.
So would the follow-up meeting be 15 minutes later, or would it be the next day or 2 days later?
Within 5 minutes to 10 minutes, it could be pretty quick. Leah can set up a meeting fairly quick and get the email out to each of you. Might be a little bit, we've taken some security precautions. We're not to the point where we're actually calling this a webinar, which essentially we can leave out anybody except for the panelists, for example, who's on right now. And we're not to that point yet, but we do at least have a password. Anyway.
Okay.
So there are more security measures that we can take, but it becomes far more cumbersome. Okay, so I guess the question of public hearing, is that what we're discussing?
Yeah, let's get, we're looking for setting a date for a public hearing, correct?
Adopting the tentative budget and the date for the public hearing.
Tentatively adopting the tentative budget.
Right, sorry.
Okay, what?
And those are two separate motions, right?
Yeah.
Yes, they're two separate motions. What are you, do you have a date you're suggesting for us?
June 2nd.
June 2nd? So that's gonna be, are we gonna, is that gonna be the proposed budget and the public hearing?
That would be the final budget.
That's the adoption of the final budget with the public hearing. But again, we will delay the adoption because I agree with this council in delaying, and I think it's a great idea to allow that public comment to come in. We would delay the adoption of that final budget till the second meeting in June, in which what we'll do is we'll leave the public hearing open and then we'll accept comment via email or potentially via voicemail for the week preceding or following.
Everybody understand that? If so, do I have a motion?
Well, I'll handle the first one. I'll motion that we adopt the proposed budget as the tentative budget.
Second.
We would have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Councilman Ince.
Aye.
Councilman McEwen.
Aye.
Councilwoman Ivy.
Aye.
Councilwoman Meekum.
Aye.
Councilwoman Fillmore.
Aye.
Okay, that passes 5-0. Second motion. For the,
I would make a motion to set the time of the public hearing on the budget for June 2nd in connection with the normal first of the month meeting.
I'll second that.
we have a second on that. Let's do a roll call vote. Councilwoman Meekum.
Aye.
Councilman Ince.
Aye.
Councilman McEwen.
Aye.
Councilwoman Fillmore.
Aye.
Councilwoman Ivy.
Aye.
Okay, great. So we have that set. Next item on the agenda is item number 3.
Can we stay with budget for a minute?
Yes, we can, because I had forgot a question I wanted to ask as well. So go ahead, Councilman Ince.
I have a couple of questions. The email that you sent out today, Jake, with the review that had been done by ULCT on lost sales tax revenues. And I didn't get as much time to spend with it as I would with the two as I would have liked. My perception is that they are saying, well, we have pegged a higher sales tax rate than they are projecting they think we will receive, especially in the coming 6 months. Is that correct?
No, actually, we're right on. What if you look at, you're talking about the report that ULCT commissioned,
Right.
It was showing an overall about Brent, correct me if you're wrong, was between a 28 to 30% decrease.
No, it's actually a lot less than that. They're projecting over the year end only 2.5% decrease. So the first quarter is a 20% decrease. This is their projections. And again, I'm highly skeptical of the information, but 20% decrease from last year. Now this is comparing last year, 20% first quarter, 15% second quarter, a 5% increase in the third quarter. So we're talking January, and then potentially a 15% increase in the last quarter. So overall, a difference of 2.5% decrease. What we were informed about on yesterday, feels like it was a week ago already. Commissioner Valentine from the Tax Commission shared with us they are going to release April's or March's numbers on May 11th. So it gives us a little bit more of a preview. They're releasing it 2 weeks early. Since income taxes were due from businesses in March, they're able to get this information to us sooner to give us an idea what to expect in March for our sales tax revenue. But that was only a partial shutdown. Really, we're interested to know what happened in April. So with the economy opening, we're definitely doomsday in our sales tax revenues. But again, we wanted to approach it that way to add to the budget or add items to the budget later than try and find a way to subtract items later. And we just felt it was better just to remove the equipment early and come back to you as a council every quarter and say, look, we did much better. We've got $300,000 more than we anticipated. Here's the projects we'd like to fund, and then we amend the budget.
Brent, I think I asked this last time, but can you remind me how this percentage that we're predicting of a drop compares to the 2008 recession drop?
Well, Jacob can discuss that and how it impacted Centerville, but I think this is far more drastic. I think correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob, but I think we were looking at 7.5% to 10% during the Great Recession overall. The reason why we're down at the 25 to 30% is our neighboring communities feel that way. There's a lot of evidence that, well, this was, again, April, we were working on these numbers when it was pretty awful. Again, we'll see what May holds, but I'm pretty happy with our deferred budget and bringing stuff back if we see increased revenues.
I don't question your judgment call. I'm just curious about how it would compare.
Yeah, 7.5%, 10%.
And I mean, really the difference is this is a quick drop and they're expecting a quick recovery, where that one was a 3-year gradual decrease. And at the bottom of it, we were 17% down.
From the beginning of the process, it was a total of about 17%.
We were 17% down from 3 years prior. If you're
okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, 17%.
That helps to put it into perspective. Yeah, thanks.
Talking about total dollars over those 3 years. Yeah, it was quite a bit of money.
Right.
So the other pain in your neck, Jake, that I'd like to bring up is should we be considering declaring that we want to do a what's the word, a tax rate adjustment so that our rate stays the same that it was for the 2009, well, the prior fiscal year,
2018 was when.
So you want to hold a truth in taxation hearing, Bill?
Well, I want to at least talk about it. I had talked about it last year. I question that it is wise to do to ourselves what we did historically and get to the point that we need to do a 40% tax increase. Now, this is obviously a very bad year to do something like that. I understand. That's why I kind of introduced it as a pain in Jake's neck. But at the same point in time, our rate is going down. How much did we don't know how much it'll go down till the 1st of June, right, Jake?
No, we won't find out, but it will go down because values have gone up.
Yeah, values have gone up only to go down right now, probably, although I don't have any confirmation of that. But I'm raising the question because we are going to be very tight and stabilizing our rate at what it was last year has a benefit.
Well, I think you know where I stand. I couldn't agree with you more to bring it up, the value of bringing it up. And my personal feeling on this always is, regardless of the economy and our financial situation, I feel that we should just have truth in taxation as a set part of the annual budget process so that we're not losing budgetary money every year, to just keep the rate the same and be keeping up with inflation. So I would be in favor of that.
I know that last year we said we'd look at it this year, but obviously we're in a different spot. There's no way I could support it this year with what people are doing. People are close to losing their homes. A little bit of money goes a long ways. I think once we get through this next year, we need to look at it. And I agree that maybe we need a little bit every year, but I don't think this is the year to start it.
Well, to Tammy's point, I'm a believer that we should maintain the option. Truth in taxation hearing doesn't mean that we have to change the rate, but we have to hold one if we are going to do that. I think that our options for this year are somewhat constrained, Robin, by what you're saying, that this is not the year to put the final straw on if we can avoid it. But pragmatically, Bill's not wrong in saying that, look, we're going to be losing ground. And if we're already looking at a doomsday budget, or sorry, a tentative budget that involves lots of capital equipment purchases that are not being made, what's the next cut? And do you offer up that cut because we didn't have the truth in taxation hearing? I think that having the option available to us and holding one is probably a prudent way to go. We don't have to raise the rate. That's not a guarantee, but it does give us the option.
Well, and it just becomes a cultural, I just want to say, it just becomes a, I don't disagree necessarily with Stephanie and Robin and the conclusion, but the cultural shift that I want to see change is to take away the political discussion each year of whether or not to even hold the hearing, right? And so as a Centerville City representative, I would encourage that we just create the culture that it's an expectation that the hearing gets held, that it gets seriously considered, to just keep up with inflation each year. Because there's always two huge hurdles when a council is looking to do this. And one is to even say truth in taxation hearing. And then the other one is to decide to adjust the rate. And so if we can just say, you know, we're going to get rid of that first hurdle and just create the expectation that it's an education. To me, it's an education process to the citizens that's saying we're a fiscally conservative council, we're a reasonable council, and the reasonable thing to do is to recognize that we lose money each year if we don't do this.
But I would say that when people's mental health are as fragile as they are right now, this is not the year to do any education that would be stressful. And I think it would be stressful.
I agree with that. And the other thing is, it's so hard to get public comment. I mean, they can't come in, they can't talk to us face to face. I think everything we've said is good. And if it was a normal year, I could agree with it. But I think this year, where it's so hard for us to have a public hearing, so hard for us to get public comment, people, like Stephanie said, are on the breaking point to push their buttons and make them, I mean, where we and I don't know, I don't have everybody else would vote, but to say, well, we'll hold it, but maybe we're not going to do it. I think to put that out there, and then we don't know what this year holds. So we raise it, and then all of a sudden they're watching city council meeting and Brant's coming and going, we've got an extra $300,000. Let's buy this and this and this. And they're like, you raised our taxes and now you've got extra money, even though to us it's not extra because we should have had it in the budget in the first place. To me, I'm adamantly against it this year. I just think it would be a disaster and people would feel like we were doing it because we are kind of behind closed doors right now.
I don't think it hurts to develop a policy to actually, I guess that a policy could change, but many cities I talk to, they do truth in taxation hearings every year, even if they're not changing a rate. I
agree with that, but I don't think this is here to start.
Councilwoman, that it's difficult to get comments this year. That would be my only concern. If we can't get comments.
Well, in support of what Robin's saying, and this kind of plays to what you were saying, Tammy, about the cultural shift, because of the way Centerville has done its truth and taxation hearings, the term truth and taxation hearing automatically translates into tax increase. We don't have that culture shift. I think that I would like to see the culture shift as well. I'm just not sure. I mean, Robin makes some good points about the merits of trying to make that, because I made the distinction here, and we know that, but telling the public, hey, we want to make a distinction in this crazy year that we don't necessarily want to raise your rates, but we want to have the option to do so. It's probably going to be
fine.
really
That's
weird.
fine, and I can respect that, but I do want to just take this opportunity to point out that there were reasons last year. And so, you know, there are pretty extreme reasons this year, but let's take note that it's pretty easy to find reasons each year, because last year we were in a pretty healthy position.
Yeah, we also weren't in a pandemic, so I think we'd run out of legitimate world-ending excuses why we couldn't do it.
Part of the issue is, in my mind, is that it became a badge of honor historically that we hadn't done it in so long, and that I believe was a mistake. It's not that I want to do it this year in a bad year, but we've got to. If we're going to do it, we have to start at some time, and there will be reasons not to next year.
Well, I am not in. I'm straddling the fence on this. I did not like that this council was put in a position of needing to do a 40% tax increase and to basically true up everything because we had people who were interested in being everyone's friends rather than the appropriate running of the local city finances. So I don't think that we should go forever. I just really don't know. And I'm very sympathetic to what Robin's saying as far as I don't know how we're going to balance the public comment on this, because I can guarantee you, given the chance, there's probably quite a few people who are going to feel very negative about it, and they're going to want their 10 or 15 minutes at the pulpit telling us about how wrong this is. So I'm really conflicted.
And some of them are friends.
Some of them are friends, and some of them will pin our ears back regardless, just that we're having this portion of the discussion, because that's the nose in the tent. But
part of this part of the discussion, which I thought would come up this year before all of this hit, and then I thought, well, that's not going to happen because it should have happened before. I mean, we're on May 2nd. We're talking about looking at the proposed budget in a month. I think we don't really have time to do all of that. And I just feel like that this is not the year to do it. I agree with what everybody said. And I know Tammy said we didn't do anything last year. But we had just done it the year before, and that was part of our reasoning. But I think this year is so unknown.
Actually, we did it 2 years before, Robin.
Yeah, but last year we had done it.
2 years before.
But my concern is we don't know. So I don't want to raise people. I don't want to do it if we're not going to raise taxes, because then it can wait till next year anyway. And if we are going to raise taxes, then
this is not the year to add to the stress.
This is not the year to add to the stress, and this is not the year to lost my train of thought. because we don't know what's going to happen. And so would be awful if we raised it and then down the line, oh, we've got 300,000 more here. Oh, we've got 400,000 more there. Because we haven't put that in our budget, it's going to really make us look bad down the line because people don't understand that. So we're going to keep adding, oh, we're going to get a new truck. Oh, we're going to get a new this. Oh, we're going to get a new that. And they're like, you raised our taxes and then you were able to buy all this stuff that wasn't in the budget. I think that it would be a disaster this year. That's my opinion.
Robin, I'm willing to go with you on that. Here's what I'm willing to say, because in terms of, Lisa's given us plenty of instruction about not binding future councils, but this same council will be sitting next year. So Tammy, to give all weight to what you said about, we could possibly have other excuses. I'm willing to commit right now that this isn't the year, but for next year, I am committing tonight that I will be more than happy to participate in a truth and taxation for our next budget cycle, not this current fiscal. That at least, because you're right 100%, Tammy, that we need to start that culture shift. And Bill, I'm 100% in agreement with you that we can't let this lag forever, but we do have some pretty extreme circumstances this year.
We do. I don't deny that. And I wanted it on the table, and I felt like we needed to have the discussion. Had things not exploded on us the way they did 4 to 6 weeks ago, this would have been on the table before. I kind of kicked myself that I didn't get it on the table 4 weeks ago, but I have accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, and I'm not gonna sit here and lobby for it. I wanted the discussion.
I think it should be lobbied for. I think it's appropriate and important that we do it. I can say definitely with a surety next year, and I'm on record saying that. Just this year, I'm concerned about the other issues. We don't have an idea of how many folks in Centerville are now out of work or on some sort of form of assistance. If any of us cast our nets not even too far, we can probably find somebody who's suffering who may not return to their same level of income when this all ends. So I'm sensitive to that, but we still have to maintain continuity of government and finance.
If I can also add to the discussion, I really do appreciate the discussion. It gives us a heads up and some considerations for next year. It was not in our proposed budget this year just because of, in light of what we're going through. I think the conversation should be had every year. I think this is the example of what a recession can do to a city when you're so reliant on sales tax. Centerville is lucky to have this huge sales tax base, which has kept property taxes pretty low for all these years. Even with the 40% increase a number of years ago, we're still the 4th lowest in the entire county. And I can send you those documents if you're interested in seeing it. We're the 4th lowest. And but we're also in a city who demands high level of service. And it's kind of hard to provide a high level of service to your residents when we're so vulnerable to the sales tax population. Property tax gives you that stability. There are neighboring cities here around us who are only anticipating a 10% decrease in their sales tax because they rely more heavily on their property tax. So they're not going to take as much of a hit. They're able to continue as is without much of a hit to their budget. But it is a balance. So you increase the property taxes, it becomes difficult for homeowners to own their homes. But also, if you don't increase it, it makes it difficult for us to run a city. Right now, I'm looking at Councilmember Ince's property taxes, and I looked at Mayor Wilkinson's property taxes. 9.7, just give you a heads up, 9.7 of your property taxes goes to Centerville, 49.1 goes to the school district, and so on and so on. But of a $3,500 property tax rate, $350 is going to Centerville City. $350 a year to provide your public safety, fire, and police, to provide parks, your streets. I mean, that's a heck of a deal. You're only paying $30 a month for all these services. And it's an interesting way to look at what we're paying for in services from the city. And it's a heck of a deal. The biggest problem is school districts, 49.1%. It's huge. And we see an increase from a school district every year. I mean, they have that process figured out. And I don't think it's bad to have the conversation every year, but as staff, we're sensitive to that, what that could do to the population. Anyway, I love having the conversation. I think it should be had. If we had an annual truth and taxation just to deal with inflation, I think that does help. And we're in a position, I've shared this before, but I have serious concerns about our reserve. We only have 1.7, $1.7 million in reserve. So if we ran out of cash today, we could only operate the city for 3 months, and then we're out of money. So
that's what I wanted to say. Just I understand what you're saying, Robin. I respect it, but if someone is going to have heartburn when maybe we say their interpretation is we end up with extra quote unquote money, then if that person is, you know, concerned and wants to know about the budget, it doesn't take very long to understand that that isn't extra money, that we're already very much behind. So with Bill, I'm not going to lobby for it further, but just in closing on this subject, I'm going to say that I think we had a missed opportunity because we really did the right thing by doing that increase. And my feeling strongly was that we should have just created that culture shift at that time. And so many years have passed already now that it's kind of starting it over again and having to have the whole conversation over again. But we can do that, no problem.
I'm glad it's been lobbied for, because it's given me the whole process of thinking that, Brant, with your wonderful explanation there, we need to really start this process of explaining truth in taxation and property taxes long before we get into this cycle. So this is not a December message, but starting in January, we should probably start messaging to the community what this is before it actually gets going. Because the problem is right now, even if we said truth in taxation for this budget cycle, there's no time to do any of this education or even attempt to shift culture. So
No,
I'm,
there really isn't.
fine doing that with next year, with the commitment that between staff and the council, we come up with some reasonable education that we're comfortable communicating out into the community, so that when we have this next year, it's not a surprise. It's not something people are trying to figure out last minute.
Yeah, agreed.
And I want to thank both Brant and Steve before him. Since I've come into office, I've been advocating, let's build up that reserve. I mean, I like the philosophy of 6 months, just like a business and an individual are supposed to do it. So I'd like to work towards that for sure. Brant, I just want to know one thing. Did I pay my property taxes last year?
you did. Did you want me to share with everybody how much you paid?
No. Just want to make sure I didn't forget.
I'm looking at Councilmember McEwen's right now.
Great.
Built in 1994.
If there's nothing else on that, I did have one other question for either Jake or Brant. Our budget year 2019-20, if we have any amendments because of this COVID thing that started 2 months ago, do you foresee any amendments that we're going to have because of that?
Well, let me explain a little bit. We're not going to have any amendments. We've worked with each of the directors to come up with their 12-month estimate. And every single one of the directors has worked to cut spending. We're actually looking at having a pretty sizable addition to our fund balance to help with this next year. Because of that, I don't foresee any amendments, anything that has to do with COVID. There's a few technical things that we need to do. Like, we actually received more money than we expected with the RDA. So we have to make an amendment up for the RDA, and that has an impact on the city's budget.
And I just wanted to make sure, I realized that we don't know a lot of these numbers because of COVID until months down the road, next year's budget, but I just wanted to know if we foresaw anything in this year, so.
I think we're okay. We'll be all right.
All right, I think we've given clear direction that we're going to start a discussion on this early next year and look at doing the truth in taxation next year for sure. So anything else on taxation before I move to item 3 or budget? Okay. Item 3 is electronic meetings policy amendment. And this is for Lisa. Do you want to cover that?
Yes, thank you. As the council knows, we have an electronic meetings policy, and we've recently amended that to eliminate the requirement of having anyone at the anchor location. I'm just recommending one more minor amendment, having reviewed the governor's executive order in more detail, and attending a few Zoom meetings. I just wanted to make it clear that in our policy to provide kind of a disclaimer that obviously if there's any sort of executive order or any type of regulations that are imposed during a local or state emergency, that we will follow those policies as well. So for instance, our policy still says that we're going to post some sort of paper notice and that type of thing. And a lot of those noticing requirements have been waived by the governor's executive order. So just recommending 2 minor amendments to the electronic meeting policy regarding the purpose and scope section and the emergency section to reference executive orders issued by the governor or any other authority. So just recommending approval of resolution 2020-10.
Thanks. Any questions for Lisa on that?
Motion to adopt resolution 2020-10.
Have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Councilwoman Meekum,
Aye.
Councilman McEwen,
Aye.
Councilman Ince,
Aye.
Councilwoman Ivy,
Aye.
Councilwoman Fillmore.
Aye.
Looks like that motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Lisa. Item number 4 is personnel policies and procedures amendments. Is that something that, Lisa, you want to discuss as well?
Yes, I'm happy to address that one as well. I'm also recommending 2 amendments to our personnel policies and procedures. Also, just what I would describe as disclaimer clauses. The first one is adding a non-appropriation clause to our personnel policies, which basically says that if any non-statutorily required employee benefit, just a discretionary benefit is not funded in any budget year, that employees will not be eligible for that benefit. So for instance, we're talking about, eliminating some certain type of employee benefit in this year's budget. This clause will make it clear that if there's no funding for the benefit, we're not giving it out to that year. An alternative would be to just amend our personnel policies to eliminate the policy, but I think some of these, it's just this year that we might not have the money. We don't necessarily want to just eliminate the program completely. So anyway, I think that non-appropriation clause will kind of address that. We often put it in our contracts, and I thought, why not in our personnel policies as well? So, and then the second one is also just making it clear that, we've had a lot of federal regulations with the CARES Act and the Families First, particularly the Families First Act that provides some paid sick leave provisions that might arguably be in conflict with our existing policies. So I wanted to have a very clear governing regulation clause that just says, look, if there's federal regulations or state regulations that are in conflict with our own personnel policies, obviously those federal and state regulations will apply. So for instance, under the Families First Act, some of the family medical leave, we cannot require the employee to use paid leave. And so we'll just make sure that'll still be in our personnel policies for subsequent years, but for this year, we will follow the federal regulation, if we're not allowed to require them to use their own paid leave for some type of leave. So we're recommending adoption of resolution 2020-11, amending the personnel policies to add these 2 disclaimer clauses.
Go ahead. Councilman Ince.
I'd make a motion to approve 2020-11 is prepared.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, roll call vote. Councilwoman Fillmore.
Aye.
Councilwoman Ivy.
Aye.
Councilman McEwen.
Aye.
Councilman Ince.
Aye.
And Councilwoman Meekum.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Item number 5 is the COVID-19 discussion. Brant, that was initiated by you. do you want to start that?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just an update from yesterday's discussion with the Davis County Health Department. As you saw in my email, if you saw my email, I'm going to start sending over those PowerPoint slides for your information. They're what's sent to us. We have a meeting. The mayor and I have a meeting with the County Health Department every Monday at 4 o'clock, and those are the slides that are shared. Really, the big thing is we are starting to see, we did see another decrease overall in the county, which is great. We only saw 27 cases in the entire county, down from 36 last week, which is great to see. We did see a couple of cases more in Centerville, but overall, everything's great. What Brian Hatch shared that I want to pass along to you is, and I think it's really telling, or I think that's a good indicator, is he says he's not so worried about how many cases we have in the entire county. It's the hospitalizations that we might see in the county. If we're starting to see more hospitalizations, that's more of a concern than the case number itself. And that's the issue is what I found out, and I had no idea, is of the 3 hospitals that we have in the entire county, we only have 15 ICU beds. And last week, I think they were at 67 or 70%, 2 or 3 COVID cases is what, and then the rest were, cardiovascular or some other issue. So that's really what it comes down to, is Davis County, and what we were informed is a lot of those issues that go to Salt Lake, they go to Salt Lake hospitals. And anyway, so that's really the concern. I had no idea we only have 15 ICU beds in the entire county. But anyway, overall, we're seeing a decrease in the numbers, which is really positive. Anything you want to add to that, Mayor?
No, I think you covered it well. And we did check with Brian Hatch, and that email that Brent sent over to you, that was available to release to you. But like he said, that's probably something you kind of hold pretty close to the vest. We don't want to get any troubles. Rather be safe than sorry.
So question, if we have 15, do we know how many are in Weber County?
I don't know the Weber County numbers.
I don't either.
And do we have any kind of a comparison? Obviously Salt Lake is a lot bigger than we are. Do we have any kind of a comparison of beds per capita?
Those numbers I might be able to find on the state of Utah dashboard. I don't know exactly. They give you the rates per 100,000, but as far as how many ICU beds are available, Brian Hatch, we asked that question to Brian Hatch yesterday, and he didn't necessarily have that information on hand. I doubt Salt Lake would have it readily. Well, I'm sure they do, but it may not be up to date information.
I was just curious to know. I mean, yeah, I'm surprised that it's that low, but are we at half the rate per capita that Salt Lake is at? And I would be interested in knowing how Weber County and Utah counties stack up.
Well, the last time I looked at the state of Utah dashboard, the number of cases is the highest number of cases in Salt Lake County. I believe second is Utah County. And then it goes to Davis County, I believe.
Correct. That's correct.
Well, I'm more interested in the ICU beds per
no
capita.
idea how many beds are available in the other counties.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm more questioning. I understand from a friend that Utah County had a big upsurge this last week because of a couple of particular events, and has 2 new hotspots that they're quite concerned about.
Yeah, and actually showed up on 2 News. Channel 2 News actually discussed those issues. But yeah, they are seeing hotspots, and Brian Hatch did share that throughout the state. We're seeing a few hotspots. He didn't necessarily share any hotspots in the county, in Davis County.
Okay, thank you.
But overall, I think Davis County is doing really well due to our proximity to Salt Lake County. But again, it'll lead into a different discussion on what we're doing here at the city if there aren't any other questions on.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
My only question would be the 15 ICU beds. Seems really low because I'm trying to, I've been in the ICU up at Lakeview Hospital, and it seems like they had at least 10 or 11 up there at Lakeview last time I was there. So I'm shocked at if we really only have 15 ICU beds.
That's
I
what
don't know, but just after being up there, I'm sitting here trying and I'm thinking, wow.
I can tell you that that the state is aware of exactly how many ICU beds are available, and that's updated every day, so that the command and control centers for the governor's office do know that number. But I think the only way that your question is going to get answered, frankly, is if some investigative journalist goes out there and decides to work with the various healthcare organizations to get that number. I don't know that there's an easy way to extract that from a question.
Some of the hospitals have also made, I know from Lakeview, that they have a contingency on it. When they weren't doing outpatient surgery, they figured they could turn the outpatient surgery into ICU. So I know there's options out there for that, but I was just really concerned. 15 beds is really scary.
Yeah, that sounds very small.
Yeah, but you also have to remember you're talking ICU with isolation. There are different classes of this that come along. So I wouldn't get too concerned about that number. If it became an issue related to another spike in COVID, there'd be a lot more discussions on that.
You know, George, I like to miss out on sleep and worry about things all night.
Oh, I think everyone's doing that, but on this one, because Bill's question is a legitimate question. What's your per capita of ICU? But it's like, what are you defining as ICU for what type of event? And because a cardiac ICU is a very different arrangement, as far as I understand. So it would get kind of dicey to try and boil that into a simplified number. But I am not a health professional. I just support them on TV.
And the computers.
That too.
Well, Brent, I'm sure
Go
you're
ahead,
moving
Brent,
into,
I'm sorry.
Brent, I'm sure you're moving into this, but I'm very curious to hear about how you guys are adjusting to moderate level, and if more people will be coming into the office now, or if you're going to keep things kind of running as they've been.
So yeah, I am getting at things, Councilmember Fillmore. So we are allowing, just due to keep employees sane to some extent, allowing them to work from the office. The great thing here, well, here at City Hall, we do have separate offices. We can avoid any contact or passing each other, or any meetings if we have to. We shut our door and call each other. Some people are enjoying working from home, or it's convenient for them, that they have their setup there. And so some employees, particularly in the police department, we have a number of employees that will stay from home or work from home. But no, Lisa and Lee and Jake, we can pretty much isolate from each other, even with everybody in the office. Still concerned about common areas. So, the conference room is not available for use, except for special circumstances. But we're trying to avoid the kitchen, just making sure we're not using our common areas so we don't have that place where we can spread germs and things like that. But yeah, for the most part, our crews in public works and parks are isolated. There's no two employees per vehicle. So they're isolated, but they're continuing to do their job. And they're doing.
Do we have all of them back working all the time at the office?
Off and on. I mean, everybody could come back. We've got Luann. Luann is working from the court side. She's got one of those empty offices over there, so we're able to move her over. I don't know if I shared this last time, but we moved Jolene into Jacob's old office, and we moved Cheryl into Jolene's office, so they're able to be isolated. And then Tana is working from Luann's desk there. So everybody's kind of separated here, and I think we've done a good job isolating everybody. Lobby will continue to be closed, I would suspect, through the end of the month at least. Again, we want to just see, as we reopen the economy, what that does and if there's any sort of spike. We are going to open up a portion of the lobby for appointments to allow Cheryl to work with those interested in cemetery spaces and any new utilities, so they can come into the lobby and not stay out in the hot sun.
What about our public works, our water, and I know some of them were doing training at home. Are they all back working now in the office, or at their job? Yeah.
They have been for some time now, yes. I believe Professor Randy has cut down on his classes.
Okay.
Poor kids. Anyway, but it was pretty educational. Actually, I learned a lot from the employees. They've learned a lot. And I think that was a good opportunity for them to cross train.
The question is, when do we get to see the test results from your quizzes from Professor Randy?
We should do some quizzes, see what happens. I'm not sure he did any. Playgrounds will continue to be closed for now, and restrooms will continue to be closed. Parks are still open. Tennis courts are open. Basketball courts are open. We have refunded all the reservation fees for our parks, our pavilion reservation fees. Not allowing, them to use those pavilions. Now, again, if a group of people, family get together and use a pavilion without a reservation, I'm not heartburn about that. But if they are not maintaining social distancing or have more than 20, then we're going to have an issue and we might be called out to address that issue. But again, we're not going to honor any reservations, at least through the month of May. Utilities, we sent out a letter, the mayor and I sent out a letter that we would not shut off utilities during this pandemic, as long as they communicated with the city their situation. We did have a number of homes did not communicate, did not call the city saying they need some special assistance or that they need to be worked with on their payments. So we have, just so you know, there are several shut-off notices that went out today. Again, we're hoping not to deal with that. We just want them to call the city and say, here's my situation. I need some help. We don't plan on charging any late payment fees. We would like to work with our residents.
I have another question on that. Last year, we had some questions. I'm wondering, do you know how many extremely large water bills we had over the winter? I have a concern where we don't read for so long. There are a few people that really get hurt by that. I'm wondering, how many are, over $100 or over $1,000 in their water bills from the readings from the fall to the spring.
I don't know the exact number, but I know there was a number of them this year. I can get those numbers for you and what we experienced this year with that.
I'd like you, if you could send those out to us. I'd like to know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, are we going to reach out to those people personally or just wait for them to call in?
Well, with the number that great question, Councilman Rentz. With the number that we have, first, we're going to let them reach out to us. What we think, well, there's some landlord-tenant scenarios there where we've sent the landlord the memo, but the tenants are actually going to see the shut-off notice. So we're going to be reaching out to those type of situations.
Okay.
First, we want to leave it up to them. We want them to take personal accountability, but we will reach out to them since it's not, we had 52 to begin with. We don't have 52 anymore. It would have been challenging to reach out to 52 people.
Well, even knowing the 52 is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
One item that has come up related to parks, and that is, I've been called on this a couple times. I've actually seen it myself, so it's definitely happening. We're getting instances of where people are wearing, like team jerseys. It looks like an organized event. The last one I went by, people were sitting 6 feet apart, the kids, and looked like they were receiving instruction from a coach. So of course the questions are coming up, well, have we reopened the city for these sports teams? And if we haven't, why are we allowing these sports teams to be out there? And I don't know if I'm the only one that's experienced that, or are we getting calls on that? Is anyone else getting those kind of calls?
I've had several calls on it.
I have not.
So yesterday we did have that issue. Spoke to Bruce, particularly last night. We had an issue where we had some organized team activities going on out there. They're definitely not Centerville. None of our rec league. I shouldn't say that. I don't know for sure, but it's definitely not a new season of our rec league. That has been canceled for this year. Now, as far as, again, if we're having some activities going on in our parks, that's an enforcement question I think we need to decide on. We don't have to decide on that right now, but when you have these activities or family get-togethers, our concern, this is kind of how I take it from the county health department. their instructions are no more than 20 in a gathering and 6 feet apart. If you allow it, that's on you. And so they're kind of passing the buck and the liability onto the city that if we allow it to occur and there's some issues going on there, maybe COVID is passed from person to person, then it's what's our exposure and our liability for allowing that to occur. Are we going to send police officers out there and break it up, or are we going to continue to allow people to recreate? I think there's a balance of that freedom of movement that Councilmember McEwen has brought up a number of times, as well as enforcement. Our enforcement ends at 20 people and 6 feet apart, not wearing masks. That's not an enforcement issue, those types of issues. So depending on how strict we want to become to breaking up any of these outdoor activities can become subjective and become even challenging. And we might have a situation that they dealt with in Meridian, Idaho, where you have a mother using the playground and was arrested. And I'm not quite sure I want to get to the point where we're sending out the police department to break things up and arresting people for, unless they're intentionally being, violating our simple, the orders. So it's a balance, and I'm not sure how to go about that. I think what we saw yesterday, I saw people recognizing the 6 feet, whether they're wearing all uniforms or not. It's irrelevant if they're adhering to the 20 people 6 feet apart. I say have at it.
So adding on to that, I had a Zoom meeting a week ago Monday with all the mayors in Davis County, and then we also had follow up with text. No cities are running any of their organized team sports. That doesn't mean that something like Rocky Mountain Baseball or some competitive soccer league that, privately, that they're not getting together. So it's very possible that on some of our fields throughout Davis County, what you saw, maybe Councilman McEwen, was maybe one of those teams, but they're not teams, that's from any of our cities.
And I think that's the distinction that we need to make sure that people know. And that's what I said when on the call that I got prior to heading over to the park is the city hasn't changed its position at all. It sounds like a gathering of private citizens, and frankly, that is something that if it were egregious, we'd look at potential enforcement. But I just don't really think that our police's valuable time is well spent cruising the park looking for groups that might have 20 uniforms that are closer than 6 feet apart. But it's a tough one. The other piece of that, sorry, go ahead, Robin.
I agree with that too, although I have been informed that maybe it is some of our teams, even though they didn't pay, they're still down there practicing as they would be if we had an organized and a real team. And I don't know, whether we care or what we do about it.
Well, fortunately, Paul's here and on mute, so he's hearing all this discussion. Brent, with the playgrounds being, oh, sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, I've been listening in. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So we do get calls. We've had a handful of calls. Dispatch will report. Someone calls into dispatch saying that there is a group somewhere, and our approach has been to respond on those and to inform. And again, it goes to the order. Are they in violation of the order? And right now it's at 20 and 6 feet. So that's just like Brent said, that's what we are sticking with and informing people of. We're not taking any kind of a hardcore approach to it. No one's being cited. We're just trying to educate. And we haven't really had any problems with people, causing a major problem with it. They've been pretty good about dispersing if needed. But we have had a handful of those calls. We're not driving around looking for them specifically. And, like Brent said, running over there and counting how many people there are and looking to see exactly how close they are to each other.
Brant, with the playground still being closed, are we going to go through again and refresh all the caution tape? It kind of looks like an abandoned streamer, plastic streamer festival, at least at Community Park. I don't know where it is elsewhere, but if we're going to keep it going, I guess we need to keep that refreshed.
Yeah, we probably need to add, again, just the updated order, maybe the level we're at, as well as the county put out. I think one of the emails I had sent to all of you had some guidance from Davis County Health. We can also add that information to Playground. I did reach out, or I had Bruce reach out to a group called Stop the Spread. It's an organization that disinfects playground equipment. South Ogden, I guess, is using them as a trial. And I asked Bruce to reach out to find out, again, just looking for maybe an opportunity of opening up our playground equipment. The cost to do so is $50 a day, which would equate to $350 a week to do something like that. But again, it doesn't stop the spread. It only cleans it at the end of the day, but any use during the day could transmit the virus. So anyway, we're trying to look for creative ways to reopen things here at the city. But as of right now, that's not necessarily a viable solution. But just to give you an idea, we are trying to see if we can't get back to normalcy.
Well, even if you look at some of the restaurant disclosures and things that I've seen, I mean, they're talking about cleaning things 4 times a day or every 20 minutes. They certainly significantly more than it's ever been, but it certainly isn't anything that is going to provide any kind of guarantee.
Agreed. So that's all I have. I'm don't know if Mayor you have anything, or Chief, but I'm happy to address any questions.
I was impressed with the way that Twisted Sugar's drive-through is looking. Nice job.
I just
Yeah, I think that's helped quite a bit.
Yeah, I want to commend Chief. After our meeting Tuesday, 2 weeks ago, I was driving down by Dairy Queen and he was out there talking with the Dairy Queen, and it looked, Chief, like they were changed the direction of their crowd right quick, and it seems like it's been pretty good since then. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It took a little bit of thinking about exactly how we're going to work that out, but it worked out pretty good, I think.
Yeah, it looked really good.
Now the problem is people are going to want the Dairy Queen routing to stay even when we go back to whatever is normal.
Yeah.
It looks to me like it'd be better for them.
What's that?
Looks to me like it's better for them.
Except they couldn't do it if they had people parking in the parking lot.
Yeah, because they couldn't, it's right where their parking is. All right, item number 6. This is minutes review and acceptance from the April 21st City Council work session and the April 21st City Council minutes. Any comments or changes on those? If not, a motion to accept.
Motion to accept the minutes as recorded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Councilman McEwen, do you have a council report for us today?
It's a very short council report. Obviously, you know there's mosquitoes out there. The mosquito abatement district is still staffed and doing its job. They've staggered their shifts so that they're keeping people separated. One of the things that's been tough for them is in order to maintain isolation, it's not uncommon to have 2 people in a fogger vehicle to transfer one to another site. So there's going to be some incremental cost increase because it's 1 person per vehicle. And so that's changed a little bit about how they operate, but rest assured they're out there doing their job. And we're going to have about the same mosquito season as we had last year.
George, I have a question. Have they ever talked about, I know there's a few businesses that are out there that spray for mosquitoes in your grass. You know, they come to your home and will spray your grass for the mosquitoes. Have they said if they know if that is really a viable?
Ooh, that is a whole can of worms that goes on almost every 3rd or 4th meeting. The commercial pesticide applicators do not have the same regulatory concerns that the board has and that the mosquito abatement district has. The mosquito abatement district has to pay attention to no spray zones that are registered. So for example, if I say I'm a beekeeper and I don't want you to spray in my area, or you need to turn your fogger off coming through my area, are required to comply. A lot of those commercial entities don't necessarily have that same issue. So there's quite a bit of debate as to whether or not that is trying to be as politically correct as I can, a help or a hindrance to the activities in the mosquito abatement district. I mean, they're licensed to apply those chemicals, but the application, I think you get a better job from your invested mosquito abatement district than you would trying to get a private application. And you do know that you can, prior to an event, call the mosquito abatement district and request a mosquito treatment. And my recommendation is to let them know well ahead of time that you have an event planned that's, you know, adhering to social distancing and the right number of people.
No more than 20 people.
Right, and they will try and accommodate it into your schedule. The biggest issue they have when it comes to these treatments that are for events or otherwise, or people's neighborhoods, is we get this event of people chain calling. I'm going to blame Syracuse because they have like one of the highest call volumes of any of the cities. And Corinne, if you're listening, sorry in advance. But they have neighborhoods who the neighbor at the end of the street will call for a spray. Then 2 doors down, they'll call again for a spray, and 2 doors down. And they think that changes the scheduling of the priority. Well, it really doesn't. If one person is called, you're fine. It's getting the same priority.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Councilman?
Nope, we could go into all kinds of mosquito varieties, but I'll leave that for another night when people have more time.
Thanks for that report.
And since we're talking about reports, I guess we have another May meeting before this, but I just want to let you know that in our rec board meeting on Monday yesterday, we did decide to do a partial reopening of the rec center starting May 21st. So that will be limited number of users on the things that can be more separated, like separated treadmills, single lanes of swimming, single person use in the racquetball courts, and 5 free skaters and 5 instructors at a time. So 10 people on the entire ice rink at a time. So if anyone wants any more detail about that, I can forward you the
So does that mean the track remains closed?
Yeah, I believe so. The track will remain closed.
Do they think they're going to be able to open the pool for the kids and stuff at all this summer?
No, we're not anticipating that. The leisure pools. So the part of the leisure pool that's the pool that can be used for lane swimming will be 4 lanes and be used only for lane swimming. The rest of the leisure pool area will not be open. And then the other laps pool will be lane swimming.
So is there any data about how the virus deals in water?
My impression is that with it being chlorinated, that it cannot survive in the water. So then the issue is congregating, around the pool. So that will be controlled.
All right.
Thank you.
By the way, we do have the first gardeners over at the gardens. So thank you very much, Lisa Romney, for helping with those paperwork things that we needed to change for this year. Appreciate it.
Great. Next item is mayor's report. Just a couple quick things. Couple related to COVID, or one related to COVID, one not. Lakeview Hospital. Councilwoman Meekum, I can't remember how many ICU beds. I know that they, through this process, they have not filled them. They've been fine and okay. So we've been good there. And then, as I mentioned to you, I did have a couple meetings with mayors last week. Just for your information, those that have pickleball courts, all had them closed down because they're such gathering spots, but they weren't going to open until the 15th. But Layton and Kaysville decided to open theirs. I haven't talked with Mayor Talbot. I don't know if he opened his or not, but so just for your information, that happened. Another thing we discussed is what communities were doing with their summer festivities. Some have 4th festivities, some have 24th festivities, some have summer days, type of things. As you know, Days of 47 parade was canceled. Handcart Days in Bountiful was canceled. Those were all LDS church moves. And so most festivities are being canceled. They're seriously changed. There's a couple of communities that are going to do fireworks right now anyway. And as you know, I sent a text out to you that our 4th of July festivities as we know it in the past won't be able to happen, just from the standpoint of we didn't book a band to commit that money. We'll probably only be at 50 people congregating, so it'd kind of be hard to do a night in the park before. So Brett and I have been talking with our 4th of July chairs. One of you reached out to me, Councilman Entz, about some other ideas as well for 4th of July activities as well too, trying to do something somewhere. Nothing final has been decided. But like I said, it's not going to be like it was. So that's why I sent that text out, because we were concerned there was some confusion that people were thinking that our 4th of July festivities were just going to be like normal, but that's not the case. I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else to report. The dump's open. I went up there the other day, but you already knew that, and everything's functioning there okay. We did have a board meeting just to approve a couple minor things, but nothing major on that. So,
what's happening with the church dinner over at
Episcopal Church of the Resurrection?
Yeah. Is it shut down?
I have no idea.
I have no idea. I don't know. I'm assuming such, but I don't know what they did.
I talked with them a while back, and they were still providing those meals. Just thought they would bring them out to the parking lot and in bags. They had a process figured out over there. So as far as I know, they're still doing them.
But they were bringing them out, you said, to the cars?
Yeah, they were making the meals, and then the people that were coming for the meals would just stay in their cars out in the parking lot, and the food would be shuttled out to them. And that was the plan the last time I talked with them over there about what was going on. That's been a little while, but I'm assuming they're still doing that.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, Brent, City Manager's report.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The one thing I want to just bring up to you that you're aware that as staff, we are working diligently on this manufactured home park and the direction of the Centerville Mobile Estates. The mayor, Lisa, Corey, Mackenzie, and myself had a really good conversation today with the Utah Housing Coalition, Davis County Housing Authority, as well as the CDBG administrator. Really what we're looking for is understanding what resources are available for those tenants, and trying to make a connection between some advocacy group to work with the developer to find some sort of compromise on what is the best direction for that area. You know, as a city, we are trying to remain neutral, not advocating on behalf of the developer, nor are we advocating on behalf of the tenants, but we do care. They are Centerville residents, and so we're just trying to be sensitive to this difficult time for them, that they potentially might lose their homes. And so we had a really good conversation on possible ideas on how to proceed. But really the big thing is we've created a communication line where we can reach out and ask for resources or get ideas on how to approach something. Just so you know, May 13th is that planning commission meeting for the public hearing for the Hive development. Just so you're aware, well, I don't know, Lisa, should I share what the intent is, or should we hold off because we're still in the planning phase? I feel pretty firm about it.
Information is fine.
What's that?
Information with the disclaimer that it's still in the works.
Okay. So again, we're trying to be sensitive to those that live in the area, and we want to make sure, due to the lack of not having access, again, this is not for discussion, it's not an agenda item, but you can ask me follow-up questions as long as we don't lead into a huge discussion. But the idea is we want to give as much access to those residents to be heard at the Planning Commission. So what we intend on doing is opening the public hearing on May 13th, accepting calls for public comment, and then we're going to give some instructions. We're going to leave it open, the public hearing open, for a week and a half afterwards, and allow any emails to come in, voicemails to be provided, and that we added to the record. Also, we'll be working with community policing and going to each manufactured home and delivering a packet that has some information that allow them to document, handwrite their feelings, so they can also participate that way. What our concern is, they may not have access to technology, may not have access to Zoom. Really what we're doing is just trying to create any type of access so they can be heard by the Planning Commission. Those will be provided to the Planning Commission members on the 27th. And then as far as where we go from there, I don't know, but really we're working hard to make sure the residents can be heard at the Planning Commission level. It's not going to be perfect, but there's no way we can delay this. It would be the applicant would need to decide to delay this until public hearing could be had in person. But I think we're doing a pretty good job trying to make sure that there's a lot of access.
Do we have, how many units are there down there?
48.
And how many, do we have an idea how many are occupied?
It's a good question. I mean, we have heard that maybe some aren't occupied, but I'm assuming there's 48.
I've heard through the years that there's some that when I've been down in there delivering things during the election that are in pretty rough shape. I didn't look occupied, but I don't know.
There's a couple, but most of them are occupied.
Yeah, so
do we have any kind of an idea about time frame when they would be forced to move?
I don't know if I can release that. I mean, what's out there is 9 months is what I believe they're required to provide, but the developer has provided some documentation of their plan to approach this, but I don't know if I can share that necessarily right now, since it's more of an internal document at this point.
Okay.
I saw
that gives
Paul
us a little bit of an idea.
I saw Paul keyed up his mic to say something.
Well, I was just going to mention that I've got Trish Gallagher tasked with identifying as much as possible all of the tenants that actually live there, because that is part of the challenge. We might know who's listed as an owner, but that doesn't necessarily mean that person lives in the trailer park itself. So we're trying to identify everyone there, and then we want to be proactive as a police department to reach out to them in coordination with the city to help give them resources and be an avenue to help provide some of that information to them, understanding that if things get heated down there, we're going to be in the middle of it as well. So we want to develop some good relationships with them.
It's a great idea.
So I shared this with you. Sorry, Chief, you got more?
Sorry, it's me, Brett, but go ahead. I
was just going to share, even though this is not necessarily come before this body for approval, I think it's imperative that you understand what is going on at the Planning Commission level. But we are sensitive to what's going on, and we'll keep you abreast of any other information, but that's where we are.
And I have had the LDS bishop of that ward and also the LDS stake president reach out to me, and they're trying to provide them resources of what their options are. And as Brant said in that meeting today, we're trying to do the same thing. It sounds like the chief is trying to do the same thing as well too. So I feel good so far that there's been good correspondence going on, recognizing everybody's rights in this situation and needs. We're doing the best we can.
Is there an anticipation, I don't know how to say it gracefully, of a potential blow up?
I don't know. I don't know if the chief, it sounds like he may or may not feel there is, but.
Well, I think there's a lot of emotion going on, and there's a lot at stake for those people. So anytime you have that type of environment, there is potential. So that's what we're trying to avert and hopefully mitigate.
I agree with Chief.
Yeah, well, I understand. I guess that if someone was already screaming loudly, you'd have a feeling maybe, and if nobody's extremely concerned, then maybe we're not as concerned.
And I think the conversations have been reasonable and civil. I don't believe there's any just outright unreasonableness. I think everybody's being reasonable and logical. It's emotional. So yeah, nothing extreme for sure. And Mr. Mayor, that's all I have. Unless there's any questions from the council that I can address.
Any questions? If not, I don't know of a need for a closed session. I would look for a motion to adjourn. In that motion, we do have to convene really quickly as an RDA for the RDA meeting. So whoever makes that motion, keep that in mind.
Motion to adjourn city council meeting to an RDA meeting without the intent to return to city council.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Council meeting adjourned. RDA meeting. Leah, do you need a little time?
No, I'm good.
We're good? All right. RDA meeting. I don't want to do a roll call again. Are all five still present?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm here.
Okay. All five, the directors, sorry, now they're all present. Okay, the business of the meeting. We have the RDA fiscal year 2021 proposed budget. And that will be, Brand, are you going to handle that? Or Jake? Jake's not.
Jacob.
Jacob is? Okay.
Hey,
Jake?
the budget document that you have in front of you is the full budget. RDA budget is the last 2 pages of the proposed budget, the tentative budget. The RDA, what you'll notice there is that all we're doing is we're mimicking the numbers from this year. We'll be amending the budget to these numbers, but this year, the next year. 2 things I want to point out that are good news about the RDA, besides the obvious increase in revenue. This will be the last year. This next year, 21, will be the last year that we pay Dayton West the developer agreement. It's also the last year that we will be paying on the bond for the Performing Arts Center. So my recommendation is to adopt this proposed budget as tentatively as the tentative budget, so we can get a final budget, and then also set the public hearing for the final budget for June 2nd.
Can I ask a question first?
You
Does this with those payments expiring, does that free up any money and give us any latitude to help the theater out of the RDA?
Well, for the next year, yes, it will. That, as you know, that we've extended the parish gateway, so we have the year after that, and then 7 more years after that.
Bill,
So-
can you elaborate on what you mean by help the RDA, or help them through the RDA, or are you just thinking out loud?
I'm more than anything thinking out loud. Obviously things are, well, I don't know, obviously, maybe I was just blindly optimistic about how soon we would return to some kind of normalcy. obviously it's going to be a while before the theater's going to be in operation. They continue to have expenses and so forth. Do we have access to money that we can appropriate forward to help them through a difficult time in a year when we don't have a lot that's going to be available from our
General fund,
our
our RAP tax.
RDA, our RAP tax.
Well, so you know, with the RAP tax, what will be going into the DCPA is still the 5%. It's only about $2,000 less than what it is going to be for this year. And also, you remember the lease payment, you've waived that indefinitely at this point. So there is some help there.
Did we do it indefinitely? I thought we only did it to the end of June.
That would be 3 months.
We did 3 months.
Was it 3 months?
Yeah.
3
I
months.
believe so. Just concerned. I was thinking out loud about their needs.
I mean, there is a possibility that there is a balance that's in that Parish Gateway RDA, the area itself, and there is a possibility that we could do some kind of 0% interest loan, short-term type loan. If
Not to go too far down on this discussion, we can create this as an agenda item. This is kind of a separate discussion on how to work with Center.
Might be appropriate at the next meeting.
You want to put it on the next agenda to discuss options to assist Centerpoint Theater?
Well, and maybe before you do that, Brent, maybe you need to reach out to Jan and see where they are. Maybe I'm creating problems where they don't exist.
You're not off base.
Okay. With that, I would like to, can I combine the proposal? And propose that we accept as tentative budget, the budget that has been presented and scheduled for June 2nd, the public hearing.
Second.
A motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, we covered that one then. Item 2, minutes review and acceptance of the December 17th meeting and the March 3rd and 31st meeting.
Motion to accept the minutes as recorded.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That looks like that's unanimous as well too. I don't have anything else on the agenda. So I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn the RDA.
Second.
Motion, a second, all in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Good night, all.
Good night, all.
Night all.
Great evening.
Good night, Gracie.